On our 7th wedding anniversary, I discovered that my husband had moved me from the first beneficiary of our family trust to the third, and he had pinned the diamond iris brooch, passed down to every generation's eldest daughter-in-law, onto another woman. Even crueler. I was diagnosed with acute leukemia. He had known for 2 months but cancelled my appointments, stopped my treatment, and waited for me to be gravely ill so I would sign away my inheritance, making way for his mistress and child. They thought I would quietly wait to die, but while they conspired to bury me, I froze the trust, recorded all the evidence, and turned this respectable elimination into a public reckoning of their lives. Today is my 7th wedding anniversary with David. I spent the entire afternoon preparing dinner, grilling his favorite steak, setting fresh flowers and candles on the table. By 7 p.m., he should have been home. My phone rang. I assumed it was him, but when I picked it up, I saw his calendar reminders automatically sync to my phone, something he had set up when we first got married, saying it made us one unit. A notification popped up, 7:30 p.m. Jewelry shopping with Claire, dinner with Emma cancelled. My finger froze on the screen. This wasn't the first time. Last month, I noticed he had removed me from his private assistant's emergency contact list, replacing me with Claire first. Last week, we were supposed to attend a charity gala together, my mother's favorite event, but he cancelled at the last minute, claiming work. The next day, I saw him on the business news standing beside Claire, promoting her newly founded foundation. Last night, unable to sleep, I opened his study computer. The password was still my birthday, which he never changed. In a folder, I found a trust document he had set up when we married. My position as a beneficiary had been moved from first to third. The file didn't say who held the first 2 positions. It's a professional necessity. You don't understand the world of capital, David told me when I confronted him 3 days ago. He was wearing a $50,000 suit, holding a glass of whiskey, not even looking at me. That Claire, she's my business partner, he interrupted, his tone brushing it off like an insignificant detail. Emma, stop thinking like a housewife. I used to be a doctor. 7 years ago, I worked in the ER, often pulling 36-hour shifts. David said he felt sorry for me, that my wife shouldn't work so hard. He promised me the best life. I quit my job. Now he tells me I don't understand. The steak had gone cold. The candles burned out. I sat in the dark scrolling through news on my phone. Local business headlines flashed. Rising philanthropist Claire stuns at gala, backed by David Joe. I clicked the photos. Claire wore a silver gown, confident and radiant. David stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her lower back, the spot that used to be mine. And then I saw it. The diamond iris brooch on her chest. The brooch my mother-in-law had passed down to me. A family heirloom for every eldest daughter-in-law. When she died 3 years ago, she pinned it on my collar and said, "Emma, this family is yours now." Last week, it went missing, David said. Maybe it's at the jeweler. Now it's shown on another woman, in front of every camera. I turned off my phone. The living room clock struck 10. I finally understood. I wasn't being cheated on. I was being replaced. Like old furniture, old clothes, old contracts, slowly cleared away, removed, until there was no place for me left in this house. 3 days later, there was a cocktail party at the Hyatt. David's company was one of the hosts. I had always attended these events with him before. This time, the invitation never came. I went anyway. I wore the most expensive dress, the birthday gift David had given me last year. The tag still hanging in the closet, custom adjustments for Claire. The dress fit perfectly. Turns out it had been tailored to her measurements all along. The gala was dazzling. As I entered, David was laughing and chatting with a group of people. When he saw me, his smile froze. Claire stood by his side. She approached first, holding a champagne glass, smiling like the hostess. "Emma, what a surprise," she said sweetly. "David didn't say you'd be here tonight." "I'm his wife," I said. She smiled and turned to a few investors following her. "Let me introduce, this is Emma, David's ex-wife." The room went silent. David didn't correct her. A man in a navy suit looked me over. "Oh, the one who used to study medicine." "Yes," Claire chimed naturally. Emma was an ER doctor, so impressive. But she gave it up after marriage. "What a shame." Her tone sounded complimentary. But everyone's eyes said, look, this is the woman who gave up her career for money and is now being replaced. David finally walked over, his voice low. Go home. Why? I asked. Don't embarrass me. His eyes cold as ice. Leave now, and we'll pretend this never happened. So my existence embarrassed him. I turned toward the bathroom. In the mirror, I took a deep breath. 7 years of marriage, and for the first time, my lipstick felt painfully bright. From the stall, I heard a voice. It was Claire. On the phone. Don't worry. Soon, her role is over. David is just waiting for the right time. Yes, the trust has been changed. She won't get much. Water ran from the faucet. I washed my hands slowly, deliberately. The woman in the mirror was pale, but her eyes were sharp. I understood now. I wasn't betrayed. I was fired, and they didn't even want to give me a decent final paycheck. A week after the anniversary dinner, I went to the hospital. Lately, I'd been dizzy and fatigued, my gums bleeding when I brushed my teeth. I thought it was just stress. When the blood test results came back, the nurse's expression was strange. Mrs. Joe, some of your readings aren't normal, she said. The doctor recommends further testing. What kind of testing? A bone marrow biopsy. My medical knowledge instantly kicked in. Abnormal blood results. Bone marrow biopsy. These words together pointed to several terrifying possibilities. When can I do it? I've scheduled you for tomorrow at 2 p.m., the nurse said. The next day, I arrived at the hospital on time. The front desk nurse checked the computer, looked up at me. Mrs. Joe, your appointment has been cancelled. What? This morning, they said, there's a company-wide health management adjustment. I called David. After 7 rings, he picked up. Background noise of a conference room discussion. My test was cancelled. I said, I know. His voice calm. I had my assistant handle it. Emma, you've been too anxious lately. Those symptoms are all psychosomatic. That was the doctor's recommendation. Doctors can overdose too, he said. Go home and rest. Next week, I'll have my private doctor see you. Last time, your private doctor told me to drink more water. Then drink more water. He hung up. That night, I secretly checked our family medical account emails. I discovered that all my medical records had been transferred to a company health management portal. And access to that portal was in the hands of David's assistant, Claire's cousin. At 2 a.m., unable to sleep, I went to the kitchen for water. Passing the study, the door was ajar, and I heard David's low voice. Don't tell her yet. Yes. Wait for the final report. I know timing is important, but there are more urgent matters. He was on the phone with my attending physician. I stood in the dark hallway, my hands and feet cold. The next morning, David left on a business trip. I went to his study. The trash had just been emptied, but in the corner was a crumpled piece of paper. I unfolded it. It was my preliminary blood test report. Handwritten notes, highly suspected acute leukemia. Bone marrow biopsy needed immediately for confirmation. The report had been torn into 4 pieces, as if someone had been in a hurry to make it disappear. I carefully pieced it back together, my hands trembling. They knew. They had always known. When David returned from his trip, Claire came to pick up some documents. She sat on the sofa I had once chosen, sipping my tea, and said to David, Emma's current condition really doesn't fit into your life plan anymore. She said it lightly, like discussing the weather. The investors are watching. A stable family image is important. She glanced at me, her eyes void of malice. Only assessment. In her current state, she's a variable. David didn't say a word. He just looked at me, weighing. That afternoon, I received a bank alert. Our joint account had been frozen. Reason, suspicious transaction review. Calling the bank, the representative politely said, your husband requested the freeze. Both parties are needed to unfreeze it. My credit card was blocked too. That night, David explained, adjusting asset allocation. Temporary measure. I need money for the tests. I said, I told you, you don't need those tests. He handed me a document. Sign this. I'll issue you a separate card. The document was titled, Addendum to Prenuptial Agreement. It stated that if, for health reasons, a spouse could not fulfill marital obligations, they voluntarily relinquished most of the shared property. What is this? I asked. Protection measure, he said flatly. Claire is right. I need to prepare for possible risks. Risks? I'm your wife, so you should sign it even more. He held my hand, gentle but cold. Emma, I love you, but life is real. If you get seriously ill, treatment costs could crush us. I looked at him. This was the face I had loved for 10 years. And now he says my illness would drag him down. What if I don't sign? He let go. Then you figure it out yourself. The next day, I sold the jade necklace my mother had left me. She had said before she died, if you ever run into trouble, this can help. The antique dealer gave me $80,000. He said it was worth at least $300,000, but that was the urgent sale price. With that money, I paid for the bone marrow biopsy myself. During the 3-day wait, I heard that Claire, through her foundation, had formally taken over the children's medical charity project I had managed. That project was my mother's life's work. Now, in interviews, Claire said, "This is a new initiative David and I care about together." The doctor called while I was reading the interview. "Mrs. Joe, the results are in." His voice heavy. "It is acute leukemia. Treatment must begin immediately. No delays." What if I wait? Every week delayed reduces the cure rate by 10%. He paused. "Mrs. Joe, I actually told your husband the preliminary results 2 weeks ago. He said he would handle it." I understood. They weren't waiting for me to recover. They were waiting for me to collapse, until I was too weak to fight, too weak to make a scene, sign that agreement, and quietly exit their lives. That night, the day the biopsy results came, David returned home. I sat at the dining table waiting for him. The agreement lay on the table, and a pen. "I've thought it through," I said softly. "You're right. If I get sick, I shouldn't drag you down." He looked surprised, then relaxed, smiling. "That's the Emma I know, but I have conditions." I continued. "During treatment, I need to maintain quality of life. Separate account, $100,000 a month. Until it's over. $100,000 is too much." He frowned. "Then I won't sign." I set the pen down. "I can go to the media and say my husband wanted me to sign away my property while I was sick. Tell me, do you think investors would like that story?" His face darkened. After a long pause, he said, 50,000. 80. I replied, "Deal." I signed my name on the last page of the agreement. My handwriting was steady, not a tremor. He hugged me, clearly pleased. "Don't worry, I'll find you the best doctors." I knew exactly what he was thinking. Once I signed, I was finished. The treatment costs would come out of our joint assets. But if we divorced later, I'd get less than 10%. He thought he had one. What he didn't know was that on the very same day I signed, I did 3 things. The first, I contacted classmates from medical school and began the process of reactivating my medical license. When I resigned 7 years ago, my license had only been switched to inactive, not revoked. My classmate told me that as long as I completed continuing education credits and passed an assessment, I could practice again. "But Emma, your health right now," she hesitated. "Which is exactly why I can't wait," I said. The second, I dug out David's company's annual reports. Over the years of marriage, even though I didn't work, I often helped him organize documents. I knew his investment bank loved using complex cross-border structures to avoid taxes. I knew some of those investments lived in legal gray zones. And I remembered Claire's foundation, the one receiving enormous charitable donations from David's company. The amounts were outrageously high, and the foundation's overseas accounts were registered in a small island nation notorious for money laundering. I wrote all of this down in a notebook. I'd started the day I discovered the trust had been altered. The third, I invited Claire out for afternoon tea. She was clearly surprised, but she came. "I've thought it through," I told her, my eyes red. "I really don't deserve David anymore, but I don't want to leave completely alone. Could you visit me sometimes?" I acted well, a desperate, resigned wife, begging for a little warmth. A flash of victory crossed Claire's eyes before she replaced it with sympathy. "Of course, Emma. We'll take care of you." She even reached out and held my hand. At that very moment, the recorder in my coat pocket was running. It captured every word she said. "David wanted to leave you a long time ago. He just couldn't find the right timing. Maybe this is for the best. You focus on treatment. We'll make sure you're compensated well enough. Compensated? I didn't want compensation. I wanted everything. That night, I copied the recordings and saved them to 3 different cloud accounts. The keys were ready. All that was left was timing. The day before I started chemotherapy, I did one more thing. As the wife and potential heir, I had my lawyer send a formal notice to the bank managing David's family trust. The letter cited a clause few people ever noticed: if one spouse faces a major health risk, the other may apply for a temporary protective freeze to prevent improper asset transfers. It was originally meant to guard against gold diggers and marriage fraud. Now, I used it to guard against my husband. The bank took 3 days to review it. During those 3 days, David had no idea what was happening. He was busy launching a new investment fund with Claire, flaunting their perfect partnership of love and ambition in the media. On the 4th day, the bank called him. He came home in a rage. "What the hell did you do?" He smashed the vase in the entryway. "The trust is frozen. I can't move funds for the new investments, everything is stuck." I was sitting on the couch. I'd just thrown up. My face pale, but my posture straight. "I'm just protecting our shared assets," I said calmly. "That's my money. We've been married 7 years. Half of the appreciation belongs to me," I said. "That's the law. And the freeze is to prevent asset transfers while I'm undergoing treatment." "You're accusing me? Shouldn't I?" I looked at him. From changing the trust beneficiaries, to freezing our joint account, to forcing me to sign that waiver, David, every step pushed me out. He froze. Maybe he hadn't expected me to be this direct. "Claire said," he began. "Don't say her name again." I cut him off. "I know exactly what you're waiting for. You're waiting for me to get worse, to sign, to disappear, and then you and her would live your good life, with my money." His face drained from red to white. "You don't have proof. You knew the biopsy results 2 months ago." I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I forced myself upright. "You told the doctor to hide it from me. You cancelled my tests. You wanted to drag this out until I was too sick to recover, so I'd sign and quietly exit. Isn't that right?" The room went dead silent. For the first time, he looked at me like I was a stranger. "Emma, you've changed. You forced me to," I said. His phone rang. It was his business partner. The voice was loud enough that I could hear it. "David, investors have seen the trust freeze notification. They're asking if you have marital risk. Funding for Claire's project has been temporarily halted by the bank." David's face went completely white. He hung up and stared at me. "Lift the freeze." "No. I'm warning you, then let's get divorced," I said. He was stunned. "You've wanted this all along," I continued. "Now I agree. But in divorce court, I'll lay out every piece of evidence: how you hid my diagnosis, tried to force an unfair agreement while I was critically ill, and transferred marital assets with Claire. You don't have evidence." I smiled. For the first time in this marriage, I smiled. "What do you think I've been doing these past 2 months?" I said softly. "Chemotherapy is painful, but not painful enough to stop me from thinking." "David, I spent 7 years as your decorative wife. That doesn't mean I was stupid." He took a step back. "Let's divorce," I said. "You file, or I do. Either way, you'll regret this." He snarled. "No." I shook my head, looking at him calmly. "This is exactly what I wanted." He slammed the door and left. I slowly sat down. My hands were shaking, but inside my chest, something had ignited, hot, burning. The consequences of freezing the trust came faster than I expected. A week later, financial gossip accounts began posting exclusives. Wealthy wife suspected mental breakdown. Disrupts bank. Derails husband's investments. The article never mentioned my name, but the implications were obvious. It claimed I had developed persecutory delusions due to serious illness, irrationally froze family assets, and caused significant damage to my husband's business. The accompanying photo was a candid shot of me taken outside the hospital, pale, masked, visibly exhausted. The comments were vicious. "She should have been divorced ages ago. Being sick isn't an excuse to act crazy. Heard she used to be a doctor. Look at her now. Wow." David didn't clarify anything. Instead, Claire's foundation made a high-profile announcement: a $5 million donation toward mental health care, calling on society to support the psychological well-being of families caring for critically ill patients. In an interview, she said gently, "Sometimes patients aren't fully aware of their own condition. And that places enormous pressure on their loved ones. What they need is understanding and help, not blame. Everyone understood what they were implying. The next day, the hospital notified me that my chemotherapy had been suspended due to public pressure and requests from relevant parties. Relevant parties? I asked my attending physician. He avoided my eyes. Your husband is a friend of our hospital director. He believes your current mental state isn't suitable for high-intensity treatment and recommends a psychiatric evaluation first. I have leukemia. Suspending treatment could kill me. I'm sorry, the doctor said. But hospital policy, that afternoon. My lawyer called. David had applied for a temporary restraining order, citing that I was mentally unstable due to illness and may engage in behavior harmful to myself or others' property. The order prohibited me from accessing any joint assets, from approaching his company, and even from posting false information on social media. This is a temporary measure, the lawyer said. But courts tend to protect the stable party. I was now the unstable one. In public, David played the role of the suffering husband. I'd give up everything to treat her, but she refuses help. I'm truly at a loss. Privately, he sent me a message: lift the trust freeze, withdraw the divorce filing, be good and get treatment. This is your last chance. I didn't reply. 3 days later, I went to the hospital to try restarting treatment and was surrounded by reporters at the entrance. Mrs. Joe, did you really freeze your husband's assets? Did your illness cause you to distrust your spouse? Is it true you threatened to expose corporate secrets? Camera flashes exploded like knives. I tried to explain, but the dizziness hit hard. Without chemotherapy, my numbers were worsening fast. My vision darkened. I grabbed the railing. Then I collapsed. The last thing I heard was the frantic clicking of shutters, and someone shouting, "Get the shot!" She fainted. The next day's headline: wealthy wife with suspected mental issues collapses outside hospital. Husband weeps in distress. The photo showed me sprawled on the ground, humiliated, next to a composite image of David wiping tears at another event. My phone exploded with calls from unknown numbers. Reporters, concerned netizens, people cursing me, people pitying me, and then a message from Claire: Emma, stop. The more you struggle, the uglier this will get. Focus on treatment. We'll still leave you a way out. I deleted it, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Cancer cells were multiplying inside me. Public opinion was fermenting outside. They weren't trying to defeat me. They were trying to erase me. Erase me until no one believed me. Erase me until I no longer even qualified for treatment. Erase me until the only option left was to kneel and beg them for mercy. I was hospitalized. After I collapsed, a passerby had called an ambulance. The hospital had no choice but to admit me, maintenance care only. No chemotherapy. A private room. Terrifyingly quiet. David came on the third day. Not to visit. To negotiate, lawyer and documents in hand. Sign, he said, placing the divorce agreement on my bedside table. Sign now, and you get $2 million and the right to live in this house. Refuse, and you'll get nothing, and I'll apply for compulsory psychiatric treatment. The institutional kind. I glanced at the agreement. $2 million. 2% of our shared assets. Before I got sick, our net worth was at least $400 million. I said, that was my money. He replied coldly, sign, take $2 million, and disappear. Don't sign, and I'll make sure you don't even get that. The lawyer added smoothly, Mrs. Joe, your medical bills are already in arrears. If payment can't be made, the hospital is within its rights to discontinue non-emergency treatment. So this was the trap. Stop my treatment. Let the bills pile up. Force me to sign. Where's Claire? I asked. She doesn't want to see you, David said. She says seeing you like this is upsetting. There was no sadness in his voice, only impatience. After they left, I lay there alone. My phone rang. It was my attending physician. His voice lowered, Mrs. Joe, I looked at your latest labs. Your indicators are deteriorating rapidly. Without proper chemotherapy, you have at most 3 months. What happens then? It becomes irreversible. He paused, and the later stages are extremely painful. Do you really have no options left? I don't know, I said. After I hung up, I cried. For the first time in 7 years, I cried out loud. I cried for the jade necklace my mother left me, sold for only $80,000. I cried for the scalpel I gave up for him. I cried for the malignant cells growing wild inside my body. I cried because I didn't even have the right to be quietly sick or to die with dignity, because they needed me to make room. That night, Claire actually came. She carried a bouquet of flowers, dressed in a Chanel suit, like she was arriving at a party. "Emma, why are you doing this?" Claire sat on the edge of the bed, her voice gentle. "Sign it. Take the money abroad for treatment. Start over, wouldn't that be better? Then watch you wear my wedding ring, live in my house, and spend my husband's money?" I said hoarsely. "That's not your husband anymore." She smiled. "From the moment you signed that addendum, he wasn't yours. Do you know why he's so eager to divorce now?" I stared at her. "Because I'm pregnant," she said softly, resting a hand on her stomach. 2 months along. David said the child deserves legal recognition, a complete family. I understood. The final reason. I closed my eyes. "Sign, Emma." She leaned in, her voice like a serpent's hiss. "You can't win. You're sick. I'm not. You're alone. We have an entire legal team. You have nothing. We have money, connections, and public opinion. Keep resisting, and you'll die in that hospital, with no one to even see you off." She stood and walked to the door, then glanced back. "Oh, and your mother's charity project? Don't worry, I'll handle it. After all, it's mine now." The door closed. I lay in the darkness. My hand went beneath the pillow and touched cold metal. It was my phone. The screen was still lit. The recording interface displayed 1 hour 23 minutes and 45 seconds. It had been recording since she walked in. I pressed stop, saved the file, and uploaded it to the cloud. Then I messaged the last person I could reach, my medical school mentor, now a public health official. "Professor, I need help. I'm dying, and someone is keeping me from treatment." I attached the recording file. Password. Sent. Outside. Dawn was approaching. The darkest hour had passed. At 6 a.m., a reply came. "Hold on. Someone will come for you today." By 9 a.m., 3 people arrived at my hospital room. My mentor, a woman in uniform, and my attending physician. "This is Director Chen from the Health Supervision Bureau." My mentor introduced. "We've listened to the recordings." Director Chen's expression was grave. "Mrs. Zhou, our preliminary investigation shows multiple violations. The hospital halted treatment without cause. The doctor concealed your condition, and potential medical coercion. We have established a special task force." My attending physician lowered his head. "I testify. Mr. Zhou instructed me to conceal her diagnosis 2 months ago and pressured me to stop treatment. I have chat records and call recordings, so I wasn't the only one recording." That afternoon, my lawyer held a press conference. We released 4 pieces of evidence: the recording of David instructing the doctor to hide my diagnosis, the complete recording of Claire admitting her pregnancy and coercing me to sign, the timeline of the trust change and frozen accounts, a preliminary report analyzing unusual transactions from Claire's foundation. The press conference blew up. By evening, the headlines had completely reversed. "Shocking revelation: investment tycoon concealed wife's leukemia. Coerced divorce with mistress charity or money laundering? Claire Foundation under investigation. Hospital admits suspension of treatment under pressure. Health department intervenes." David's phone was flooded. Investors, partners, clients. When he stormed into the hospital, reporters swarmed him. "Mr. Zhou, did you really hide your wife's illness? Is Ms. Claire really pregnant? Were you aware of the foundation's finances?" For the first time, he looked utterly helpless in front of cameras. In my hospital room, Director Chen told me, "We've contacted financial regulators. His company's cross-border transactions may be illegal. Also, Claire's foundation shows clear money laundering suspicion. The police have filed a case." "What about my treatment?" I asked. "It's been arranged at the Provincial Oncology Hospital, the best hematology department. Costs, we're covering them up front." Not we. David's company funds, temporarily frozen by the court, were redirected to cover my treatment. Using his money, I would survive. By the time David finally broke through the reporters and burst into my room, I had already packed my things. "Drop the charges," he said, bloodshot eyes. "I'll give you half my assets." "No. 60%. We can settle this." "Impossible," I said. "Emma, I was wrong." He grabbed my hand. truly crying this time. It was Claire seducing me. Forcing me. I love you, we can start over. I looked at his hand. The same hand that had once slipped a wedding ring onto my finger. The same hand that had once handed me the waiver to sign. You know. I pulled my hand back gently. Chemotherapy is excruciating. Vomiting. Hair loss. Bone pain. But the hardest part was thinking, if I die, would you even care? He froze. Later, I realized, you wouldn't. I smiled. You'd just breathe a sigh of relief and start a new life with her. So I will live. Properly. Strongly. My lawyer walked in. Mr. Joe, the court has approved a full asset freeze. During the divorce proceedings and financial investigation, you cannot transfer any property. David slumped into a chair. You ruined me, he muttered. No. I stood up, though still leaning against the wall for support. I was upright. You ruined yourself. Walking out of the hospital room, the corridor TVs played the news. Famed investor David Joe under investigation for multiple violations. Securities regulator launches inquiry. Claire Foundation seized. Head restricted from leaving the country. Multiple investment firms withdraw funds. I pressed the elevator button. The mirrored doors reflected a pale, thin woman, but her eyes were bright, just like 7 years ago, the first time she picked up a scalpel. 3 months later, the divorce judgment was finalized. Because David was implicated in financial violations and medical coercion, the court ruled the marriage breakdown was entirely his responsibility. 85% of the marital property, excluding frozen assets under investigation, went to me. His company shares plummeted due to the investigation, but I remained the majority shareholder of the remainder. Claire's foundation was confirmed to be laundering money. She was officially investigated. Her pregnancy was real, but David dared not acknowledge the child during the investigation. Acknowledging it would confirm adultery. She was disgraced and disappeared. Rumor has it she went abroad, but all her accounts were frozen. Life would not be easy. My treatment proceeded smoothly. 6 months later, my condition had stabilized. The doctors said that if I continued treatment, there was a very good chance of full recovery. I retook the medical licensing exams. The knowledge from 7 years ago came back to me, piece by piece. My memory had been affected by chemotherapy, so I memorized over and over. My hands trembled, making it hard to hold a pen, so I practiced my handwriting late into the night. On exam day, I sat in the testing room surrounded by 20-somethings, but I answered every question steadily. When the results came out, I received my new license and an offer from the provincial hospital's hematology department. They wanted a doctor who had personally experienced leukemia, someone who could help more patients. On the day I reported to the hospital, I ran into David in the hallway. He looked 10 years older. His suit was still on, but wrinkled. Rumor had it he had been ousted by his partners. The investigation was still ongoing, and he might face criminal charges. Emma, he started. I kept walking. I was wrong. He shouted behind me. Can we start over? You still love me, right? I stopped, turned to face him. David, I said calmly, do you know what I thought about most over the past 6 months? Hope lit up his eyes. I continued, if I hadn't quit back then, I'd be an associate chief physician by now. I could save so many lives, fulfill my mother's wish, and stand anywhere with dignity. We could, there is no we. I cut him off. From the day you changed the trust beneficiaries, from the day you hid my illness, from the day you waited for her pregnancy to force me to sign, that was the day we ended. He opened his mouth, but no words came. One last thing. I stepped closer, voice low. Claire's child isn't yours. His eyes widened. She said it herself on the recording. She had IVF, using her ex-boyfriend's sperm to tie you down. I smiled faintly. Of course. That doesn't matter anymore. I turned and walked away. My white coat swayed lightly in the hallway. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Patients calling. I quickened my pace toward the hematology ward. There were patients waiting for me. There was a new life waiting for me. There was a life I had earned with my own hands, waiting for me. As I walked out of the hospital doors, the sun was bright. I lifted my head and squinted into the light. 7 years of marriage had felt like a long illness. Now, I was finally well. They thought I would die in that hospital room. They thought I would sign the papers, take the charity money, and vanish from their world. But they were wrong. I wasn't spared by them. It was me, step by step, emerging from the darkness on my own, and the road ahead was long and full of light.